that I was on like dong watch, but that whole brothel scene, there was plenty of dong.
I've seen an orgy. That, sir, is not an orgy.
Welcome back to Shat on TV Westworld Edition. My name is Roger Roper, also known as The Raj. Alongside me, I've got my two co-hosts, Gene Lyons.
Good evening.
And Big D Dick Ebert.
Hey-o.
And this is our Instacast version, the episode where we look back after watching the week's episode of Westworld. This was episode 5. We're halfway through the season, boys. What did we think of Westworld this week?
I've been waiting just about an hour and a half to tell you this, and I don't want to lose the audience here. Thank you guys so much for listening these 5 weeks. But what a flaming bag of shit this episode was. I was disgusted. I felt like it was a bad episode of Carnival mixed with some sort of a rehash of Lost. They've completely lost the plot. The thing has gone off the rails.
I'm gonna be somewhere between where I think you two guys are. Yeah, I felt up until about halfway through, I was with it. I liked it. I said, hey, we're expanding the boundaries of what we're seeing. They're moving the plot along. And then the tone got all over the place. It almost felt like there were multiple directors of the episode. We had some scenes that just didn't fit. And then the whole it's almost became like I was expecting Benny Hill hijinks music, where that Logan and William are running around and hey, we got to get on the train. It just felt disjointed. But I'm hoping, again, please don't abandon us here. We're going to be honest. I'm a little worried.
When you watch other TV, not HBO, when you're watching, The Walking Dead, when you're watching, syndicated television, and you get used to that, there's a marketing aspect to it, right? You see them writing certain characters up, keeping certain characters alive because they're sellable, they're likable, whatever. And the thing that happens to the character is always what the people want to see happen. Now, this show had a very somber tone when it started out. It was tragic. I didn't think it was going to end well for anybody. I'm a big Cormac McCarthy fan. That's where I thought this was going, where everybody loses. And now I'm saying, like, when it first started out, what's the thing everyone wants? I want to see Dolores empowered. I want to see William toughen up. I want to see the Man in Black, like, reveal his mysteries. I want to see Dr. Ford really tell us what it is to be a god. I want Maeve to become some sort of a counter figure, like rising from the ashes of prostitution to be a leader or something like that, right? All that stuff. And it's all happening. It's so disgustingly predictable that unless things take a very dark turn very soon, I'm chalking this one up as a loss.
So let me get this straight, Gene. You didn't feel like the fact that Man in Black slits Lawrence's throat, wraps his legs up in rope, throws it over a tree, drains the blood off of him so he can restart Teddy. You don't think that's dark enough for you?
Not at all. No, we've seen darker. I mean, look, actions and motivations are two different stories entirely. And all we're seeing about the Man in Black is that he's playing a simple game. Like, he is literally the lowest version of that character, in my estimation. When I saw there could be 4 or 5 different Man in Blacks and what they would be all about, this guy's playing a game. And he's these cliches about, like, no one would take that tone with me, not in this life at least, or whatever. Like the whole, like, everybody's just giving it away. There were so many hammy lines in this episode. As Man in Black says, your humanity is cost effective, so is your suffering. Like, that's a t-shirt. That's terrible. And the worst for me is after Dolores lies inexplicably, is able to lie to Ford. They don't give you any nuance as to why the hell she can. She literally says to the darkness, he doesn't know, I didn't tell him anything. Like, we couldn't fucking figure out that she was lying. Please.
Also, it went from, other than the first orgy we saw in the first episode, it went straight Caligula. when that whole the brothel breaks out, we now know why Maves doesn't have a line around the block, because I don't know who the hell's waiting on that one. I'm going to the brothel here in Pariah. That shit was off the chain. That was ridiculous.
What was really interesting about that orgy, though, is that HBO, for all of the tits and ass that it's had through the years, it's been an incredibly PG, poorly acted, I might say, orgy. I've seen an orgy. That, sir, is not an orgy.
But they definitely went above and beyond for the ladies. There was plenty of penis in this episode. Game of Thrones, they always knock it that the penis you see is normally kind of sad and nothing impressive. Here, Elsie is she wants to make sure that this host does not let his talents go to waste. That was something impressive.
Was that a black joke, though? With the dick size?
It was a penis joke.
Yeah, but it was a black man, and she's talking about his talents going to waste, like basically, first of all, reducing him to a giant dick, and then secondly, no?
Elsie did not care the color of that penis.
Yeah, she just cared about the size of the penis.
She cared about the size of that penis, and she was worried about him being able to use it.
During the live tweet, I think the hashtag DongWatch2016 was trending there for a little bit.
But there were plenty. If you not that I was on like Dong Watch, but that whole brothel scene, there was plenty of dong. It was all over the place.
Yeah. What do you think is I made the joke about the gold women being metaphors for the amount of Emmys that Westworld is going to win? Like, is there any truth to that?
I think it's going to do well still, hopefully. I'm not ready to jump ship. I just hope that this was a course correction. I think there were some pieces here that they were maybe forcing together, and when we see the full 10-run episode, 10-run season, it'll make sense what they were doing. But this was obviously an episode that had pieces they were trying to shove together. Round peg, square hole.
Can we talk about some of the scientific buffoonery that's going on in here? Raj, I think you pointed out that the man in black drains Lawrence, and then somehow the blood just gets into Teddy.
What did he do? Did he pour it down his mouth?
He just
is there like a gas tank cap that he has to yeah. What is this?
I had more a problem with the physics. If you throw a rope, there was no pulleys, there was no levers. That was a straight. Let's just say that Lawrence weighs 185, 190 pounds.
No, he's a little dude.
Okay, what is 160?
Okay, let's go 160.
If you throw like a burlap, like Western rope, like that, we're not talking nylon. You throw that over a branch and you try to pull 160 pounds of dead weight. I'm a big dude. I would struggle with the friction alone, but he pulls him up, no problem. Are we led to believe he's a host or he's just been doing CrossFit?
There's that. There's the. I love the fact that I wrote this down because it was so like. It was so cheesy. It was befitting of a WB or a Fox show. The laser-based satellite uplink inside the woodcutter. Nobody noticed this thing inside the guy when they were processing him. It's like it's the size of a car exhaust. Like what the hell?
No, I think they did notice it, and that's why they're so quick to throw him into the incinerator.
No. They're throwing him into the incinerator because he almost killed 2 park employees. It has zero to do with his laser uplink situation because we see Elsie take her little iPad device and then scan it over the guy, and that's where she notices it. Are you telling me that's not standard protocol?
No, I think that Dick is absolutely right. They were trying to get rid of that body way faster than normal. Like they were trying to get it into the incinerator as fast as possible. I get that part. What I don't get is that if there's obviously somebody's trying to get rid of the body. So if Elsie obviously they're showing her discover it. So I get that. Bernard may or may not know. He may be acting surprised, whatever. But I guess the point being again is that why did they just pull it out of him ahead of time or do something? It was like so. They didn't have to make it that big. It was ridiculously huge.
It's clear that the people working in the park, in the tech department, and in like the cleaning area, they're not the brightest. Destin, the creepy necroperv. How do you not know that you can't have sex with the hosts when they're offline? I do love the fact that they say they log sexual encounters.
You worked at Disney World. I worked at Disney World. I worked at theme parks. Gene, I'm sure you've worked at jobs where people, they know they're not supposed to do this. Like, you're not supposed to, be down in the tunnels in Disney World with your costume head on and like take pictures with it off and all that stuff. But people still do it. It still gets out. You know, you're not supposed to hang out with all the foreign kids at the international dormitories past noon, you know, or midnight, but you still do it because you want to hook up with some Norwegian girls, right? You did that.
They're Netherlandish girls, I think, is
Netherlandish. That's what the girls that Big D likes.
So I worked at Arby's when I was 16, and there was a kid who got fired because at Arby's, a lot of people don't know this. When you get that roast beef, it is actually a loaf of roast beef that has been slow roasted for 3 hours in the oven. We set it on a timer. It's got a probe. Well, that probe leaves a hole, and that guy found the hole. I will never eat at Arby's again after that situation. But yeah, he got caught. So you want to talk about necropervs, like humping a dead roast. That's anyway. So knife wounds.
Yeah,
takes us to knife wounds. Yeah, so they're checking out Maeve. They see the knife work. You know, a couple things that baffled me about this scene, though. Okay, normally you guys know I figured things out pretty quickly. There's the bird thing going on in that tech room, right? But before that, is that what we see in the locker? Was that the bird in the locker? Okay, because I thought it was a rose or like a turtle.
No,
the bird. What's he doing?
So Felix and Sylvester are the two guys down there, and I thought that was interesting that they're two cat names, trying to bring back up. So Felix is the guy who's trying to understand how to bring back kind of a decommissioned robot bird so that he can impress his superiors and get beyond the cleanup duty that he's at. I think that's the whole story arc that he's trying to do, right?
Yeah, but we're not so sure that that's a robot bird. He could be trying to reanimate it.
No, that's a robot bird.
Okay, you're so confident.
That's a robot bird.
Okay,
I'll let you go with it.
It has a wireless connection and it's a robot.
Okay, while we're talking about this whole robot, not robot thing, that was the big reveal in this episode for me is when the Man in Black laments that they used to be these beautiful machines.
That's right.
And then he's saying that they got cheap with it, that they made them flesh and bone, basically, right? So now we've alluded to it before. These are not strictly machines. This is organic matter, and some change happened during some part in the last 34 years that made them different than what they were in the beginning.
Well, yeah, I mean, look at what we're doing right now with technology, with 3D printing, right? 3D printing is supposed to be the next evolution when it comes to creating just about anything, when it comes to food, when it comes to parts for the NASA space station. I mean, that's where we're going. So it would make sense technologically why it would be cheaper to recreate the same piece using a production like 3D printing. There's actually a video I watched that was posted in some of the forums about there's a robotics laboratory, I think in Japan, that is creating very similar muscular tendons and everything like that with for robots. It looks eerily similar to the kind of robots that you see here at Westworld.
I want to go back to one thing the tech said that I think answered one of our questions. When he says that he has to hurry up because he has a nubile redhead in the VR tank waiting for him.
Mm-hmm.
So we now know that there's obviously ways that they're keeping the employees happy, but I'm scared to see what the VR what this perv is doing with some redhead in the VR tank. They better get a mop bucket and go clean that out.
Well, he's in the VR tank with a ham sandwich from Arby's is apparently what's happening. But let's talk about a couple of the plot points that happened this episode. So I want to start with the conversation that Dr. Ford has with the Man in Black. There's a couple things that we learned. Apparently, Man in Black is not Arnold. Right. We discovered that. So that was one question, one theory that came apart. We also learned that he's there, like he threatens Dr. Ford in a manner that made it seem to me that Dr. Ford possibly could be a host. He said, "I want to cut you open and see what you have inside you."
Yeah, I took it the same way, that it was he says like let's open you up, in the same way. And so and what's striking about that too is the way that Teddy reacted. Basically Dr. Ford is, he's got like we said before, an army. These are easily weaponized, right? Like he can protect himself, very easily as long as there are hosts available. But what's interesting about that though is, remember, Teddy is basically like on death's door. Then suddenly he's up, boop, he's ready to go, right? So it leads me to believe that and I think this will come into play later in the show, these hosts, when they do die, when they do get weakened, it's not because they lost blood per se. It's not because they were shot. It's programming. Programming tells them that they're dying or that they're weakened. They can pop right back up. And so this becomes an army, essentially, of beings that can't just be, it's very Terminator, right? You're going to have to fucking utterly destroy them to put them down.
Yeah, you saw him immediately come back, and there was a demonstration of a superior strength. He physically forces the Man in Black's hand down, and you can see that it was more than a human strength.
So they have a conversation, and Dr. Ford, straight up just asks him, "Why are you here? What are you doing?" And he's and I think Man in Black is obviously has more knowledge of the park. He obviously knows about Arnold. He knows about all these things that are happening. And he said, you never. He flat out tells Dr. Ford, you never could create a villain like me, right? And then Dr. Ford just asks him, well, why are you here then? What are you trying to do? And he makes allusions to, I'm here to get to the end of the maze. He's trying to find out the deeper meaning of Westworld. That's where I think the series is going. Guys, what do we think the deeper meaning of Westworld is, knowing what we found out today?
From what I saw today, I think the deeper meaning of Westworld isn't very deep at all. I mean, they were beating us over the head with like, hey, the tarot card, it's got the maze on it. The coffin, it's got the maze on it. Everybody's trying to find the maze. So clearly the maze is involved, Wyatt, is he there to stop me from finding the center of the maze? It's, again, I feel like there used to be these like intricately crafted personalities, and I thought the interplay of the personalities was what was going to make this show interesting. Instead, I think they're taking the cheap route and just going with, it's like Cannonball Run in Westworld, basically. Who's going to get there first?
I again felt halfway through, I said, you know what? I think the dual timelines was not really going on, that it was just there to distract us. By the end, I feel we're seeing dual timelines. The last scene where we've never seen injured or down hosts left in the park for a full cycle. They're picked up, yet the entire town of Faro has tons of dead hosts just laying around, which leads me to believe that this is either it's the distance, or this is maybe back in the past when they weren't as efficient. They talk about the revolution, and they're loading up, Slim's body with nitro and shipping it back. That might not be part of the narrative. They might be shipping that back to Delos as a present for the techs underground.
Okay, this might be a stupid question, but when we first kind of supposed that there were multiple timelines, we thought William and Logan are in the past, Man in Black is in the future. Is it possible that William and Logan are actually the future timeline? Set me straight if I'm wrong, but I was just thinking about it, and like maybe to make the park more interesting, they made the Simunitions pack more punch, because you're seeing people get choked now. You're seeing people get punched in the face. It's kind of amazing, and it seems like a much more fun Westworld to me.
Oh, I loved it. I'm leaving town right away. When you have that little fear of retaliation, it was great. And Billy loves watching Logan getting punched in the face and choked out.
Again, I don't know what you guys are seeing. I don't know if you're watching the Shame Show. This is not separate timelines. They're on the same continuum. They're at the park at the same fucking time. And I think you're talking about the city of Pariah, not the city of Faro, correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay, all right. So my thinking is there's multiple hosts, right? Because we see Dolores see herself in the parade, and then the people in the Dia de la Muerta mask, they start talking to her, and they kind of lure her back to sleep, and then we see her down in the interrogation room with Dr. Ford. We see El Lazo, who we now know as Lawrence, already awake back. So I think Pariah, the outcast, I think there's just, as you get to different scenes or different areas within the park, there's already another host there, or a different version of that host.
That theory, though, really weakens the relationship and the conversation that goes on between Dr. Ford and Dolores, because Dr. Ford meets with Dolores, and he says to her directly, there was no one else left who was there. He's asking her about Arnold, right? She is very, very special. I don't think there were multiple Doloreses. I think, again, as Dick has pointed out many times, this is being seen through their eyes there, and they glitch.
All right. Well, let me ask you this then. All right. Go with me here. There may not be multiple Doloreses, but What if there's different versions of Maeve? There's another version of Lawrence, right? Because Lawrence pops back up. He's El Lazo in Pariah. The technicians, Felix and Sylvester, they're like, wait a minute. We just worked on Maeve. Why is she back again? Right? So possibly that could be a hint that there's multiple types of hosts that are coming back in. I mean, again, this is a theory I'm throwing out. I could be wrong. Sounds like you guys aren't going with me on this one. And it's just Dolores tweaking out, seeing herself as the tarot card reader, seeing herself in the parade.
I think the timelines are there, and I like the idea that Gene came up with it being inverse. That we're assuming Logan and William are before, but they might be after. And I get a vibe from it watching when they're talking about the incident and 30 years ago. We could have two separate instances. The park is originated with the first mechanical hosts, and there's an issue where maybe they revolt against not the guests, but against the technicians. Then the park is open 30 years. And that is the backdrop for the movie where the hosts turn on the guests. It very well could be two separate instances that are 30 years apart. And that's why Stubbs says, somewhere along the lines, he said, we're almost due for another, which leads me to believe that every 30 years or so, they have an issue.
If this was a separate timeline, why are the hosts all the same? Why are they this new technologically sound, this new 3D printing models? The Man in Black, his timeline, the hosts are all flesh and bone and similar to us. And in William and Logan's, they're all flesh and bone and similar to us, right? So we're not on different timelines, guys. We're on the same fucking timeline.
Oh, no, hold on. We only know that they were mechanical for the beginning of the park. So they started out as mechanical, but yet they had an issue where they turned around and killed the techs. They come in and say, you know what, we're doing it wrong. Let's go back. Because to me, Old Bill seems like he's one of those mechanical.
Right. He's an original host.
Right. So they fix it. They go biological. The park opens. They're having no problems. 30 years. We have an issue where they maybe become aware and kill the guests. That biological, still well-oiled version of the host could be for the last 60 years. Why are you assuming that they didn't perfect it after Bill's mechanical, as they said, as the Man in Black said, when they were beautiful and simple?
Question about Arnold. So we got a lot of information about Arnold in this conversation between Dr. Ford and Dolores. Do you guys have a better picture of who he is? A couple of the hints that I picked up were that that he is an actual person who did exist, in that Dr. Ford says, somewhere under all those updates, he's still there, perfectly preserved in Dolores' memory. That there was exactly 34 years since their last contact. And that Dr. Ford is aware that, he asks, has Arnold been speaking to you? Again, he knows that Arnold can communicate with Dolores, whether that's a stored consciousness or an actual living, person. Who knows? And then there was also the hint that it was a suicide. It was called a suicide. So do you guys have a better idea? Also, before we go any further, I think I saw Dolores' nipple. Just want to put that in the notes.
He squeezes her hand, and Dr. Ford is troubled by this. The vibe I get is that Arnold was the original human creator of the park. Dr. Ford was his first creation, and Dr. Ford got out of hand and had to kill the master. When Dr. Ford opens up the episode, and he's having that conversation, and he says, where he's relaying the story about growing up with the greyhound, and he says that the greyhound spent its whole life chasing the cat, and when he finally caught it, he didn't know what to do. That's a perfect analogy to Arnold, the creator. The whole time he was out searching for consciousness to create intelligent AI, and the second that it did, he didn't know what to do with it. So I think it's analogous to exactly what happened within the park.
But we have some clear clues about what Arnold wanted to do, that Dolores was going to help him destroy the place. And, that there is an adversarial relationship, I think, where, again, Dr. Ford, for the, I think, second time now, verbatim says, Dolores asks, are we old friends? I wouldn't say friends, Dolores. I wouldn't say that at all. So one hint I do have as far as Dr. Ford possibly being a host is that he does repeat, kind of like Old Bill. He'll phrase things the same way each time, right? Which is pretty indicative. But he does ask, though, at the same time, though, a very curious line. He says, "Do you remember the man I used to be?" And I've been puzzling over that. Has he changed? Is there something different about Ford? Like, I can't quite figure that part out.
Do you think that Dolores had some sort of connection with Arnold, meaning he created Dolores to look like something in Arnold's past, maybe a wife, maybe Dolores has something to do with the woman in the white shoes?
I love that you keep, Raj, you keep trying to bring some sort of a romantic subplot into this thing. I love it.
I like romance.
You're a Hollywood writer through and through, man. I don't know. You asked about the woman in the white shoes again, and I mean, I will be very disappointed if that comes back as a thing. I was hoping that it would just be old Bill's little rhyme that he does, because it's an old drinking rhyme, you know, and I hope that they don't make it some huge thing.
But answer me this. Ford's obviously aware that Dolores is a threat. Why doesn't he simply wipe her? There's some connection there that goes beyond just host and, you know, director of the park. He tells her that her mind is a walled garden. He could easily wipe that garden. Why wouldn't he?
I know exactly why. He says that she's the only one that was there back then. He would be completely alone in the world if it wasn't for her. And Ford shows this habit. If you buy into the idea that the little boy is Ford's creation as well, he's like a living notebook, right? Like Ford can bounce ideas off of him, work with him like that. He's alone. And so he's trying to, I think he would cling to, as much as he would, you know, detest Dolores or even fear Dolores, there is a point that he would be completely alone in the world. She's the only one, perhaps the only one that was there when he was created if he's a host, or the only one that was there when he was this other person if he's a human.
Right. So what you're saying is Dolores is his final connection to his best friend Arnold, possibly.
Or just his final connection to whatever he was.
All right. So the final point before we close up the Enzacast, because obviously we're running almost 30 minutes here, and you know we have a big cast to do tomorrow. I do want to ask: is this idea that corporate espionage is happening? Is this diluting what we've built up over the last 4 episodes? What they built up is, you know, all these different theories and philosophical explorations of who we are as individuals. And then we're just going to throw in, oh, it's just this corporate espionage, and this park is hemorrhaging money, and Logan's going to find a way to buy it all out. And, you know, Dr. Ford's going to be the martyr for this idea that he's trying to preserve his park for his old buddy Arnold. Like, is it going to be, are we diluting the story too much with introducing this plot point?
I think you're making assumptions. We don't know of any other hosts that have their laser guided optical satellite, whatever it was. We only know of one.
No. You don't think that Dolores has one inside her? When she looked at her, when she's reading the tarot cards, she looks at her arm and she starts pulling the same thing that was in.
No, I think that
house?
was metaphorically saying you're going to pull the string of your existence, or that she wasn't looking like she was trying to find her.
She was pulling out the laser guided GPS thing out of her fucking forearm. What show did you watch? You didn't even watch the episode, did you?
You guys, this is actually a debate for the soul. This is a battle over the soul of Westworld. If Raj is right, it's a paltry, stupid sci-fi show, and if Big D's right, then it's actually some sort of a deeper discussion. I was intrigued when William has that conversation with Dolores as all the shit's going down in Pariah, and he says that's how this place works, right? They create an urgency, a sense of danger, so they can strip us down to something raw, animalistic, primal. It's a sick game, and I don't want to be part of it. So that's giving me a little bit of hope that there's going to be, again, a return to that deeper conversation. Also, where the hell is Sizemore? Totally gone from the picture.
Did he lose out? Did he not sign the contract that HBO made their actors sign?
Well, as soon as Ford cuts his entire narrative, he's got nothing to do. He has to leave.
Maybe he cycled back. So, is there anything we want to discuss before we close up and get ready for our big show tomorrow? Gene, are we going to lose you? Are you on the fence?
No, I mean, I'm going to see this thing through, but I'm really hoping that they turn it around. This is, I don't know if you guys watched Carnival, which was one of my favorite shows of all time. And it was spooky, and it was eerie, and it had so much atmosphere to it. And I think Westworld is I felt like I could see the sound stage. Like I was on the Universal Studios backlot. It was that cheesy. Pariah, as cool as the concept is, it just really like it looked so poorly done. The characterization, obviously having to get that many people in the show now with that many extras, like performances are going to be pretty poor. It didn't make a ton of sense to me. I did like the stagecoach robbery. I thought that was some of the best action we've seen in the show.
Oh, that was horrible. Come on. You don't ambush a wagon and all four of you stand 2 feet away from each other straight in front.
Oh, because they're so experienced at ambushing wagons.
No, but Slim was. He's a career criminal.
Yeah, Slim you also got his ass kicked just like an episode ago, so he's not exactly and he
Slim
died.
said, "Hey, let's fan out." That was awful.
I know who's going black hat at Westworld.
But we did get to see Logan get his ass kicked and choked out and left behind for the crazy-ass racist.
Confederados?
Oh, that was worth it.
Correct me if I'm wrong, though, but he looked like at the end, when William said, "I'm done pretending," and I think there was a grin out of Logan. He looked like he smiled at the end there.
Yeah, they might have their way with him.
Billy's all grown up. All right, on behalf of my two co-hosts, Big D and Gene Lyons, this is the Raj. Be sure to write in to us with your thoughts and analysis on episode 5. You can email us hosts@shatontv.com, or you can find us on Twitter or Instagram. We're at ShatOnTV, or just search Facebook and find our Facebook page there. Be sure to download and subscribe wherever fine podcasts are found. Our big cast will launch tomorrow, or Tuesday morning, rather. And then we'll do our Westworld Telegraph, which is getting fantastic reviews, where we answer all your listener theories and analysis on Thursday. So again, thanks for listening. Thanks for downloading. We'll see you next time here on Westworld.